Started here. Hey everybody, welcome back to Shock and Schlock. I'm here with Jeroen Bijl today, better known on YouTube as Horrible Reviews. Thank you so much for being here. It's an
Dude,
honor.
it's I'm honored that you wanted me on the show, so it's all cool.
Thank you. Well, let's just start getting into here. So you've been on YouTube for a long time. What would you say first inspired you to start the Horrible Reviews channel?
The main reason I guess why I started the Horrible Reviews channel, in a way was to not annoy my personal friends with me going on and on about like these shitty like low budget horror movies that nobody seemed to care about. Like I at some point I got really passionate about these like it started with like the Evil Dead and like all the slasher and zombie flicks from the 80s. And I was telling my friends about them. They were like, yeah, like that's cool and all, but we just do not really care. And that was back in like 2008, and YouTube was relatively new, but I knew it was like a platform where you could just like upload your stuff and you could share it with whoever. And I was studying communication and multimedia design at the time. It was like a study that I also learned like how to edit and like like Photoshop and all that kind of stuff. So I figured, I'll just make the videos. I'll put them on YouTube. I'll send them to my friends so they don't have to tell me in my face that they don't want to hear me talk about it. And I don't know, like that's literally how it started. Just because I just wanted to share my love, my passion for these type of movies, and I didn't really have like in my direct environment, I didn't really have people to share it with. So it's like I'll just throw it on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. It's definitely a, strange type of movie to try to share with friends that are into more of mainstream stuff for sure.
I,
Um,
I I'm I'm sure that you like the type of stuff you're into might even be more extreme than the stuff that I'm
yeah.
into. So like I'm sure you run into this all the time.
Oh yeah. No, it's difficult finding groups of people for sure to even talk about, let alone hearing of most of the stuff I've seen here. So,
Right.
what would you say first drew you into that type of cinema though? Like the more extreme or B movie side too?
Um. So it's funny. I was relatively old, if you will, when I really started like to develop, I guess, like my own like personal taste in movies. Because it was like maybe my 20s, like early 20 or like 20-ish. Before that, like I would watch a movie, like fine with like some friends, but I didn't give much thought to it. And it was I think like 2007, 2008. During that study that I was talking about, like there was at some point a class, I think it was like maybe like screenwriting or whatever. I don't even really know what class it was anymore, but the teacher, like, he just showed like a bunch of like cool movies. I don't even remember, like, but like super random stuff. Like Microcosmos was one of them, and it was just like for me, it opened like this whole world of like, oh, like there's a lot more cool stuff than just like more like general like mainstream stuff. And I did have like when I was like younger, I was like, like we would go to the video rental store and it was always super exciting to get like the horror stuff. So I did have like some connection with horror. And then like after the class, like I started looking more into like, okay, well, what's some cool, like more obscure stuff. And that's when I got into like the horror. I just love the whole like low budget, sort of like do it yourself aspect of it all. And then when I got into that, and it's just like, and I wanted to learn more and more and more. And it was just basically going down the rabbit hole, right? And I always loved like the gory stuff. And if you go down that rabbit hole, you'll eventually get to like the really gory, just the more extreme stuff, and then you end up like with the August and the Grounds and those type
Mhm.
of movies. And then I guess at some point I was just sort of like testing myself to see like, well, then let's just get them all out of the way. Let's just see
Yeah.
like what are all the most extreme ones and just like check them off.
Yeah, and what inspires you to keep going after that? I mean, I've been watching for years now, and it's the disturbing movies list. I even remember hearing like towards the beginning that it was supposed to be maybe a few videos or two
Mm.
to three, and now it's like 30 some later. Like, what keeps inspiring you to do that?
So it was initially intended as like a one of like like two videos, but I think like I think I even called it like 10 of the most disturbing movies ever made. So it was like two videos, like 5 movies per video. And I made that video. I think it was really like the first video that had sort of like a theme to it, but because before that they were just like standalone, like just like one movie per video mostly. But that was around the time that I was sort of like challenging myself to like dives deep into like the more like extreme stuff. And I had seen a few of them, and then at some point I was just like, yeah, like I can sort of make it like a challenge for myself, but then I'll just do it with the people that watch the show. You know, like it was the channel was much smaller than it is right now. So I did those two videos. I felt like I really didn't think much more of it than like, yeah, that's cool. People might enjoy that. But I got a few comments, and it was like, oh, well, if you have to do this, and where's this, and this, so that's when I did like a third one, because I think the third one has like the human centipede and like a Serbian film I didn't even cover yet, and the August Underground and the guinea pig. So I was like, oh shit, like if I'm doing this, yeah, like people are gonna say, oh, you missed this or this or this, and like there was this show, the series on my channel that that got me the most traffic, and it was just like all the comments were like, oh, talk about this, talk about this. So it like I think the reason that it went on to literally like part 30, and then like I did this big overview video, right? I think it was because it struck a chord with people. They liked it. They wanted to see someone talk about these messed up movies, and I was like, oh whoa, there's like way more, and
Yeah.
I kept doing them because at some point it was getting hard to like to find suitable titles, and I just started making more because people wanted it, and you start scraping like the bottom of the barrel. But initially it was just because there were just many more movies to cover.
Yeah, definitely. Has there ever been a film that you have been suggested or came across that you were originally like planning for a video, but after you watched it, you decided against? I mean, you covered quite a
Ooh.
few extreme things, but I feel like there might be a line. I think we all have one for sure.
I I did always drew a line for myself into you had this Wendigoon. He did like the disturbing iceberg,
Mhm.
the disturbing movies iceberg video that became like super popular, like sort of like brought back I think like a lot of like interest in the whole like disturbing movies. And I watched like this video and obviously like the list itself. But like the lower you go, and at some point you get to all like the mixtape stuff and like the snuff stuff, and like the dark web like
Mhm.
woo type of stuff. I personally always just drew a line like as much as I'm into like horror and like disturbing stuff, I'm a film fan, like like I love cinema, right? And at
Yeah.
some point for me it just stops being cinema. Like it can get experimental, but as long as it's like if it becomes like real, it's like real gore stuff. I just draw a line because I don't get anything out of it. There's like no artistic merit to it. There's like it just I don't know, like I don't care for that. Like sure, it's more disturbing than maybe a Cannibal Holocaust or a Martyrs or whatever. But it's like, yeah, no, but I wanted to watch it in a way, in sort of like from the safety of my couch, knowing that it's like a movie, it's like there's like some artistry behind it. But I also just never really watched it. Like even like all the mixtape compilation stuff. So there's I don't think yeah, sorry to answer the question. I'm rambling a lot.
I know you're
You'll notice
fine.
that, but I don't think there's been like a movie that no, I don't think so, because like I've covered like even stuff like Begotten or like Philosophy of a Knife. I usually bring those up as examples that are often on like lists like of disturbing movies. I personally do not care for those movies at all, but then I'm like, yeah, I guess they're still like movies. They could be on the list, but I'll just be honest about it that I do not care for them. But I've never covered anything like, or there's never anything that I've seen that I'm like, oh, I'm not, yeah, no, that I'm not going to cover it because of, if it's not, it's just because I don't think it was like fitting for the series, you know?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm sure you hear a lot. What's the most disturbing movie you've ever seen? Because that's sort of what you've become known for at this point. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's all subjective. But what would you say is your least favorite movie you've covered? Because I've seen about 80 to 90% of the list now, and Begotten is probably the most boring movie I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Okay, you do agree on that one.
yeah, it's awful.
Okay.
So
Because I know you must have like quite um some patience, and like because you said to like extreme and experimental, like artsy and like really do it yourself, like cheap, no budget stuff. And Begun is in a way it's like an easy target because because it is so like experiment, but it does have like a legitimate like fan base and people that all like fight the battle, like they'll go there to defend it till the end. I think at some point I did a I did like a Q&A on Instagram, like for my Instagram stories, and someone asked like, would you rather rewatch Begotten or Philosophy of a Knife? Because I do bring those two up often,
Yeah,
like as two of my least favorite. And then I did say I'll rewatch Begotten, but purely because Philosophy of a Knife is like 3 hours long. Have you seen Philosophy?
I
No,
have.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ,
it took me a few times to say the least.
because that one is like 3 hours long,
Yeah.
and so that's like that really tested my patience because I don't see any like redeeming factor in that one really. Um, like topical wise, it's you can watch Man Behind the Sun because it's like about the same like subject. Artistically speaking, you could then maybe just watch Begotten because at least it's not as long.
Hmm.
Um, but probably, I think the biggest sin one of these movies could have is just like being boring. Snuff 101 or 102 is that one is like an Argentinian
Hmm.
one. That
Yeah.
one was also like terrible. Like it's there's like a few bursts of like I guess like fines against women. Like sure, I had like the low hanging fruit, but that'll
Yeah.
get you on the list if you want.
Hmm.
But it's so boring, you know. Like it's I think that's like the biggest problem I have with some of those. They're just like yeah, they're just boring.
Yeah, I think the most disturbing part about Philosophy was a Knife is how many shots of just snow there were.
Of
Um,
the establishing shots,
yeah,
right?
man, it's awful.
It's like what it at some point it's just like, are they doing it on purpose? Are they doing it like you're already a 3 hour long movie, you know? Like you don't need like 2 minute long establishment
Yeah.
shots. It's ridiculous.
And you mentioned the disturbing movie Iceberg there too. I know that that's definitely brought some more attention to the community, at least of like extreme cinema. What are your thoughts on that in general? Because I mean, I've looked at it several times and I personally don't care for it just because the last two tiers just don't really seem fitting for what that is. It's like, sure, it's
Yeah.
disturbing, but it's a mixtape. It's like news footage, crime scene and stuff, but it's just very odd. And it's like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
Um. So it and it's in a way it's kind of stupid because when that one became so popular and when he got like that specific video and he got like a couple million views or so like
Mhm.
within like months like really quick at some point I was so it was also like hey that's my thing like this
Yeah.
and that's like that's just a silly like personal thing and I shouldn't be like bitter about it because I actually like ended up like connecting with Wendigo and we talked a lot and he's like a really cool guy but I don't think is that great and that's also like again like a very personal thing because I feel like I like over the course of like the series like all the movies that I've covered that I put quite some like research and like stuff into like that I sort of like know what I'm talking about. And with him, I also in that video specifically, I felt like he often did like, oh yeah, well this is I guess it's like some Brazilian movie or something, and it's like, and it just felt like sort of like half-assing it with all due
Hmm.
respect. Um, and um, I've also actually talked with like Jonathan Doe from Cinema's Underbelly about it, and he's because you know him right,
Yeah,
and
I do.
like he's like super passionate about it and like sort of like a spokesperson for like that really like underground extreme stuff. And he also said like he felt like it kind of brought like a bad rap to like that specific genre of like underground horror, and you know yeah I guess it was sort of like you bring this whole new audience into this sort of like and yeah, I don't know. I also don't want to sound like elitist or like gatekeeping because like everybody's welcome to watch this stuff, but all of a sudden you have like this whole new audience that's like they get just all this like dumped on them, and for me and for you and for like Johnson Doe, like it's always been like a journey, like you get to the
Hmm.
bottom yourself, and I think like a video like that sort of like takes the charm out of that, perhaps.
Yeah, it throws a bad light on some of us too, I think, just like being associated with especially like the bottom tier. And there was no qualms about that. I've seen his video as well, but some of the stuff about towards the bottom where there were some incorrect assumptions about that as well. So I think,
Exactly. Yeah.
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 And I think that, I mean, nothing against him. I mean, there's like 100 movies on there, but so I mean, you can't watch them all, of course, but there was definitely a little bit of information that sort of portrayed us in a bad light, I would say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
like,
Because I know that. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
oh no, you're good. It's just like we already have enough bad opinions of us just for watching something like Melancholy Durangle. So it's like stuff on that level is already to that point. So
Yeah, no, exactly. Because I also remember the on Cinemas Underbelly's channel that he at some point made a video like, hey, it was a specific like mixtape. I don't know. I think it was one where there was a lot of like misinformation about it. And he was just like to set the record straight, like, hey, this is getting like a bad rap, and I actually know what I'm talking about as he like because he does. And yeah, like but then I don't know, like it's I do not blame Wendigoon at all because for him it was just like another video, right? That was just the type of like is the type of content he makes. He never expected that one to blow up that
yeah,
much, that
definitely.
video. And I'm glad that when I ended up making my disturbing movies, like the big one that he wanted to be like part of it, you know, like so it sort of came like full circle again. So that's I do like that. Like again,
Definitely.
like he's a really cool guy, and but he if he I'm sure that if he knew that his video was going to blow up that much, that he would have maybe put in a little more effort. I'm sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. What's been the reaction sort of from the community over the years, like the horror community as a whole? Has there been any like moments where you've sort of butted heads with people, or has it been mostly positive?
Oh, it's been extremely positive. You know, like um I've been on YouTube for since 2008. That's crazy, right? I'm actually when is it? Like I think like next week or so is my 14th anniversary, like 14
Really?
years.
Yeah.
Like it's somewhere in May. Like the first video I uploaded was somewhere in May 2008. Um, and like again, like I don't like to talk about myself in a sense that like oh like OG this and that, but I have been doing it for a while, you know, and
Hmm.
um a few things that I did really like for like so I've never had any trouble because I feel like I try to keep drama out of it. All I want to do is just like share movies with the people that are watching. You know, like I love movies so much. I've learned so many new movies from people that watch them. They comment and I give them suggestions and I get like messages and comments people saying like, oh, like through you I found out about this movie and it ended up being like one of my favorite movies. And that's all I want to do on YouTube. Like I love that stuff. But then when I did that big ultimate guide to disturbing movies video, I did figure like I'll reach out to some guys in the community because I wasn't like talking to everyone at that point. And but even like a Spooky Rice who like blew up with his disturbing
Yeah.
breakdown videos, he said like, dude, like of course I'm down. Like he said like you're he probably said something along the lines of like you're the OG, like you inspired me to do my channel. And like Mr. GG who did a handful of like I watched those disturbing movies and his videos they got a lot of views. He's like, yeah, dude, no, they knew my channel already before I reached out to them.
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, no, that is cool, you know, like even if people aren't like talking, they sort of like are aware of like the online like horror community, and I've made like a bunch of friends through it, and I really had almost no like bad experiences with it. It's really been like an amazing ride.
Yeah, it almost seems like Horrible Reviews is like sort of spawned its own community too. And I know you mentioned Spooky Rice. I think I'm a few years older than him, as far as I know, but I think around the same time, I think we actually had about
Mm,
the same experience. I got into this type of filmmaking from your reviews too. I think my first major sort of YouTube dive was your channel. I think you were actually the first channel I followed on YouTube.
oh really?
Yeah,
That's
so
so cool.
it's been years.
Wow.
That's why it was so cool for this show. I'm still like a little starstruck a little bit in a way.
Oh
So
dude, no man, like that's no that's not necessary at all. Like it's all good. Like again, like I'm I'm honored that you me to talk about so that you like consider me like important enough to talk about like this stuff. Yeah, no, like I'm just like you, a guy that loves these movies, like to talk about them. So yeah, no, it's all cool, man.
definitely.
But I feel honored that I'm among the first people that you subscribe to like movie wise. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely been an influence on myself, and I've spoken to several people in the horror community that have gone into it because of the channel too. And I think a lot of people specifically got into it through morbid curiosity. With I'm sure you remember the thumbnail for that one video with the
Oh
Blues for Valentine movie there. Yeah.
yeah, so and I'm actually I'm trying to like not per se rebrand, but go through like I have them all. I have all my thumbnails now with like these white corners. but everybody's like on dark mode a lot now, so I know that it doesn't work. So I'm like redoing a lot of the thumbnails, and I'm trying to make a few of them. It definitely worked, right? Like that video is my most watched video. But I was also like, that's maybe like 8-9 years ago or so, that video. YouTube has changed a lot, like I don't think they like that stuff. So I'm sort of like changing a lot of thumbnails to make them a little like a little more subtle, not like naked chicks like puking blood all over the place, which definitely works. But I mean, yeah, like YouTube has changed a lot in the last decade, and it's I don't know what the question was. I don't know if this was a question.
No, you're good. Yeah, I feel like it definitely draws the views in, but I feel like it's not like necessarily representative of the content that, like, when you click that thing, like what you actually get there.
So yeah, there's this really I'll a really little side note, but I did this one video. It was I started a series on like the most controversial movies, and I did one on where they use like underage actors or characters. And I have this thumbnail, and it's Brooke Shields in what's the movie called again? So I'm blanking on the name, but it's like this young girl, but it's still here, but she's like topless, because that's why it was like such a controversial movie. That video also got like so many views, but also a lot of dislikes. And if I go in my analytics, and you can see like where the traffic comes from, it's all from like these super sketchy like Russian videos and websites and this and that. Like it's almost as if people see underage in the title and the thumbnail. They see a girl and they click it, and they on YouTube, and they didn't get what they expected. I guess I don't know what they were looking for, and they dislike the video. And then it's like, yeah, sure, it gets a lot of traffic, but it's definitely not the traffic that you want. So like these out there thumbnails, I guess they're like a blessing and a curse. So that's why I'm trying to tone it down a little bit.
And one of the staples over the years for me too has been hearing like the hip hop beats in between the transitions for movies. What started that too? I know that that's something you're into.
Oh, dude, do you have a minute? No. So it's specifically for the most disturbing movie series. That's where I introduce those. Like I'll introduce a movie, and it's like a little countdown, right? And initially, I think the first few episodes, it was the soundtrack from Brain Dead. I think like when like in the park scene or something, just like like I used that. And then at some point, I started using these hip hop beats, and some people might notice, but I guess besides movies, like music, like hip hop specifically, is like my great love. Like it's literally like one of the biggest loves in my life, hip hop. So it really was just, I guess initially, it's hey, look at me, I know my shit, because then I use like these, not per se like obscure, but like, hey, like this is that real like 90s boom bap shit, like in a way, like showing like it works, right? Like I like the concept of the countdown, and then like as if I just watched it, and I'm like, I give like an initial reaction, like, oh wow, that was but the beats was just because it gave me an opportunity to combine my two big passions, which is like movies and music, and like hip hop specifically. So it's really just that. It was me sort of like showing off, like, damn, like I know this good hip hop shit, So it was literally like that, I guess. Yeah.
And I know that you have a love for music because you've spoken about your favorite soundtracks for movies as well. What would you say your favorite movie soundtrack in general is?
There's a few. Not even all within the horror movies. Like there's a lot of great ones. One that I usually do bring up, which might be one of my favorites, or maybe my favorite, is from Krzysztof Kieslowski, this Polish filmmaker. He made in the 90s, he made 3 films. They're known as like the Trois Couleurs, like the 3 colors trilogy. Red, blue, and white, I think in that order. that they're all done by the same composer. I'm blanking on the name, also because my Polish is very great. Those three are maybe like the best film music I've heard. Like specifically Blue, the second, yeah, I think it's the second one. Have you seen the
Yeah,
Three
I
Colors
have.
Blue
Yeah,
movie?
yeah.
So
It's killer. Yeah.
I think it's one of the best like marriages of like film and music, because the music plays a large role in the plot, but also like these themes and motifs, they keep coming back, and like it affects like the storytelling, and it's so great, and it really shows you like how much of an impact, like how big a role a soundtrack can play, like more than just like in a horror movie you can make it scary with like a soundtrack, but just that soundtrack like emphasizes the whole like what the lady's going through, and it works so well. um but also like, oh, and recently I rewatched with my girlfriend, we rewatched A Tale of Two Sisters, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that soundtrack is damn good
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Like it has like very scary, like with the strings and everything, but also just like the main theme, it's so beautiful. That's like hauntingly beautiful, and it's like, oh, I love that one. There's a few Twin Peaks I always bring up because I
Oh
love the
yeah.
soundtrack to Twin
Definitely.
Peaks. I guess it's like the show then. Like the Ennio Morricone, Sergio Leone, like the spaghetti westerns. I love that stuff. Um, there's some Czech, like Valerie in a Week of Wonders is one of my favorite movies. I love that soundtrack so much. Like we recently got it on vinyl. Like we're trying to get, like me and my girlfriend trying to get a little vinyl collection. But then with like the essential stuff, so we got like the
Hmm.
Valerie in a Week of Wonders soundtrack. How the West was one super random, like this CinemaScope a Western 3 hour epic Western from like the 1950s show. Super epic, bombastic soundtrack. One of my favorite. Oh, we could talk about this like for the whole video. Yeah, there's a lot of, but yeah, those are definitely some of my favorites. What are yours? Because like I'm kind of curious for you too.
Let's see here. I mean, I think the two off the top of my head that I would say I liked the soundtrack and like listen to it away from the movie, which is odd for me, would be Goodbye Uncle Tom. The soundtrack from that, I wasn't like the biggest fan of the movie, but the soundtrack I've heard a ton.
Goodbye, Uncle Tom. Did you say that one?
Yeah.
Riz Ortolani, the guy that also did Cannibal Holocaust. That's another great one, but
Yeah.
you almost feel weird listening to that soundtrack because
Oh yeah.
the movie is obviously very
Yeah.
controversial, but you have like dun 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 dun, dun. Like the soundtrack is amazing. I love
Yeah.
that one too. That's actually also a soundtrack that I would watch, like listen to, just like I have like a playlist with a lot of soundtracks. I think that one is in it too. The Cannibal Holocaust one as well. Like
Yeah, I
it's the
agree.
same
Hmm.
composer. But sorry, and the other one that you had
I
off
was
the top of
actually
your
gonna
head?
say Cannibal Holocaust, yeah. And
Okay, yeah, nice.
an
Well, yeah,
another,
that's
yeah, another case where the soundtrack didn't really fit the tone of the film, but I thought it accompanied it still really well, just because it like had that sort of parallel
yeah,
between the two. Yeah.
definitely. Like if I actually, it was last September. We have like this little film festival here in the city where I live, um, and they had a few original film negatives for like some classic movies. So they had like an original Dutch from probably from the 80s, a 60 millimeter print of Cannibal Holocaust with like the burned in Dutch subtitles, and they screened it. And for me, it was like, wow, that's an opportunity for me to see Cannibal Holocaust on the big screen. I mean, it was like in an art theater, so it was relatively big screen, but still, like in a theater with like fans. And then like the title screen where they fly over like the rainforest, and like the kind of the credits coming on with that soundtrack. That's like goosebump stuff,
Oh yeah,
like, so that
definitely.
it's like it's so jarring how happy-go-lucky, like sort of like melancholic the soundtrack is, and then compare that to the content of the movie. But that
Hmm.
does make it like super memorable, I would say.
Yeah, I think Cannibal Holocaust specifically just couldn't exist without that soundtrack either. And I mean, I've seen several
Right?
Jungle
Uh-huh.
Cannibal movies too, like Cannibal Ferox and everything like that, but it seems like even when those try to like mimic the content, they never sort of reach the level of Cannibal Holocaust, is because the soundtrack is better.
Yeah.
It's takes itself a little bit more seriously as well, and I think that leads to it sort of holding that.
Yeah. That's interesting because, for example, if someone were to ask me like, "Hey, like, what's the Cannibal Ferox soundtrack? I don't know. I don't even know
Yeah.
what type of music is in that. Like probably some more like generic, like maybe like 80s like Italian. I don't yeah, like the yeah, that's a good point, definitely. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And all right, I don't want to keep you too long here, man, but what would you say is going to be the future of horrible reviews? I mean, you've been going for a long time. Do you have anything planned for the future, expanding away from it, or?
Um Also don't worry, like I could go on for like another hour, so it's all good. But yeah, so well, if people are watching this and they're familiar with my channel, they've probably noticed that even like I feel like even for like the past 2 years, like I'm lacking very much in consistency and uploading, and it's not because I'm done with the channel, not at all. It's really just because of life, I guess, right? You know, like I
Yeah.
have a full-time job. I have a girlfriend. I have friends and family. I'm like just to balance all of that. It's sometimes it's just a lot, you know. Like I I love making these videos. Love talking about movie. Like I was super excited that you invited me on this call so that I have I can talk movies and stuff. But I just noticed recently mostly that yeah, like all the YouTube stuff I have to do it in my evenings or my weekends, and sometimes I also just want to, yeah, like I said, like family, friends, relations. Um, Sometimes you just want to chill. Sometimes you're just tired. Um, and I noticed that it just takes a lot more effort to keep doing them. So with that said, I do still want to. I have like 2 videos in the works. I just need to again finish those because I feel like they've become a bit of a burden. But I just have to put those out. Then I get like free range to do some new stuff. I said on Instagram at some point like, hey, I'll just do like a sort of like easy content. I'll make like a go through like my Blu-ray collections. That could be cool stuff. And after and I'm also just looking into um, not even necessarily like YouTube Shorts, but maybe maybe shorter form content because I just know like if I make a new video, it's literally like a disturbing movies or like a video nasties or like a wherever what I generally do is like 5 movies in one video, right? Like it literally takes me up to like 20 hours to make one video, and I could easily like for some of the movies that I watch that I usually log on Letterboxd and I write a little review, I could make those into like little videos perhaps. And I think I want to experiment and try that a little bit. Should be a little different from what Horrible Reviews has been like for the past almost like 14 years. But at least that would make it possible for me to keep like to continue posting stuff because I guess I'd rather post it in like a sort of like stripped down version than not post at all because now it's always like for the longest time and then I post a video and then I get like I love like the reactions I get and that motivates me the most I guess because people are like oh they're happy I post again like oh shit I have to do it but I put like so much of like a lot of burden on myself that I have to make these big videos while maybe shorter content is fine as well. So that's I feel like that's maybe where I'm heading to. Just like maybe make it a little shorter, maybe a little easier. Like I can still just talk about movies, share my thoughts, read what the people think about it, and then at least I'll be able to post. So I honestly think something like that.
Definitely. And I know I'm personally looking forward to that. I mean, I'm here until the end, so I know that.
That I appreciate that, man. Like the last thing I want to say is like the other day I posted like on my Instagram a little update, basically sort of like a summary of what I just told you just now. And like a handful of people they replied and they did say like sort of like exactly what you say, like, hey, it's all right, man. Like take your time. Like we like your stuff and we'll be here. If you don't post, we'll wait. If you do post, we'll watch it. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like I shouldn't be too hard on myself. And there's like again, like what we were talking about like earlier, I'm sort of like blessed with the community and like I don't like refer to it as like a fan base or like my viewers. Like they're the fucking best. Like they're so cool. They're so like patient. They're so friendly. They're so like forgiving. And yeah, I do want to give them something back. So yeah, like if it's shorter content, shorter format content, and like you say, like people they'll wait for it and they'll watch it. That's fucking cool, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. And closing off here, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to sit here with me today. It's been great. It's been a little surreal. Just like I couldn't have imagined just from personalized like
It's all
starting
good, man.
watching, then 10 years later, just here we are. But
Oh,
yeah, I really
you're too
appreciate it.
kind, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Again, like it's been an honor. Like, thank you so much for inviting me to have this little talk. Really
All right,
enjoy it.
perfect. Thank you so much. Bye.
You are very welcome.